Hey guys, it's Kaylee, welcome back to my channel. Today I am here for another book haul, so I thought I would share with you the books that I've bought recently. I've only got a couple of physical books and then the rest I have bought on Kindle, so I'm just going to run through them all now because there is quite a few. So the first one I thought I would show you is I bought a new copy of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So I have read this book before and I'm actually currently in the middle of a reread of this book. So Jen Campbell has been doing a live reading of this book over on her Instagram stories this past month. So we're actually in the last week of the reading. So I've just been rereading this book along with her narration in the background and it's been really enjoyable. So I thought I would treat myself to a new edition of the book, and I collect these Penguin English Library editions. I just think they're beautiful. So I've got a little cube, you can't see it, but a little cube in my bookshelves where I collect these editions. So I'm excited to have my own copy. The other book that I have in physical form is The Uninhabitable Earth, a story of the future by David Wallace Wells. So this is a non-fiction book essentially about climate change and about the impact that we as humans are having on the world, and I think it's just a very honest look at the effect that we're having and kind of the inevitable result of our actions and what the future is going to look like, I guess. So I've seen a lot of people read and really enjoy this book. I first heard about it because it was part of the BookTube prize for non-fiction, and I think it's just dropped out now. I don't think it's part of the semi-finals, but it got really far and a lot of people rated it in the last round as number one from their 6 books. So yeah, it just sounded really interesting and I thought I would pick it up. So all of the rest of the books that I have to talk about are on my Kindle, so I have it here and I'm just going to run through the titles because there is quite a lot of them. So the first book that I picked up is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. So this one I have just seen absolutely everywhere on BookTube. This is a contemporary romance, and from what I know it's kind of like a hate to love romance. So it's set in a sort of office environment and we have our 2 main characters who kind of start off as enemies and they have a bit of a competition going in the office, and then inevitably they must fall in love. So sounds pretty good. I'm just slowly getting into the romance genre, so hopefully that will be a good pick. Just a fun one to enjoy in one sitting, maybe at the weekend. So yeah, excited to try that one out. Then I have Old Baggage by Lissa Evans. So this one, well, Lissa Evans just in general has been an author that I've wanted to try for a while. I don't know what it is, but I think the covers of her books just really appeal to me, which is really shallow, but they just sound really interesting to me. So this one I think is set in the 1920s, like late 1920s, and we follow a woman who is now in her sort of middle age, and when she was younger she was part of the women's suffrage campaign, and so she has been to jail before. Like, she was involved in loads of activism and was doing marches and speeches and whatnot, and then now she kind of feels like there's not really much going on in her life. She kind of feels like, yeah, she's just not really living the most exciting life, so she decides to make a change. So it sounds really fun. I've seen a few people rate this quite highly, and then there's a couple people who didn't get on with it, so I'll be interested to see where I fall with Lissa Evans, and if I enjoy that one then I will pick up a few more of her books that I've seen. So yeah, excited to try that one out. The next one that I have is a non-fiction pick, and this one I just kind of picked up on a whim. I'd not seen it anywhere before, and it's called The Brothers York, an English Tragedy by Thomas Penn. So this one is basically a biography, I guess, of the York brothers. So I have been reading Philippa Gregory's massively long series based on this time period, and so I've literally just kind of gotten to this point where I think, is it Richard IV? This is where I'm really bad at remembering all the names. Richard IV is king, and then he's got his 2 brothers. And I think that's where this book kind of starts off, with these brothers, and it goes through Richard IV's reign up until the battle where Henry Tudor comes in and the Tudor reign sort of begins. So yeah, I mean, literally my knowledge is just from those Philippa Gregory books, and although I enjoy them, kind of on a surface level, I know that they're probably not the most historically accurate, and I would quite like to expand my knowledge so that I know I have the actual facts. So yeah, I'm excited to read that, and I think he's got another book as well, which came out before that one, so if I enjoy his style, then he'll be a good author to watch out for. So then I have Here We Are by Graham Swift. So this book, I hadn't really heard of it, but I saw it, I think it was maybe one of the daily deals, so it was really cheap on Kindle, and I was like, I recognise the author's name. So Here We Are is actually a very recent release, but Graham Swift actually wrote the book Mothering Sunday, which I've seen quite a few people on BookTube read and really enjoyed. So that is why I picked this one up. To be honest, I know very little about the book at all, other than people enjoyed Graham Swift, and so I thought I would pick that one up. So this one I think follows three characters. It's set in the early 1960s in Brighton, which really appeals to me. And we follow three characters who I think work at like a variety show, so they're like magicians, comedians, that sort of thing. And I think it just explores their relationship while they're working together. So it sounds really interesting, and the author obviously comes highly recommended, so I thought I would give this one a go. The next book that I have is To Have and to Hoax by Martha Waters. So this is a historical romance, and I first heard about this on Olive's channel from a book Olive. So this one just sounds really fun, and again I'm just kind of getting into this genre, and this is a fairly new release, I think. I actually thought initially that this was like a contemporary romance, but it's not. It's set in Regency England, and I think we follow a married couple who have kind of had a big falling out, and they've been estranged from each other for I think 4 or 5 years. And then the lady hears that her, I guess, ex-husband has had an accident and has fallen unconscious, and so she rushes to his side really worried about him, you know, obviously showing that she clearly still has feelings. But it turns out he's totally okay, and she's really annoyed about this. So they basically start to fake illnesses and ailments to frustrate and annoy the other party. So again, it just sounds really fun, and I love any sort of book set in this time period. The idea of historical romance really appeals to me, so I'm excited to give this one a go, and it came very highly recommended by Olive, so excited to try that one out. And then in the vein of historical romance, because again I'm just obsessed, I've actually not even read any yet, but I'm just obsessed with the genre and just want to buy all the books. So I picked up 3 historical romance books, the first in a series from a couple of different authors that were actually on Kindle's deals, so they were completely free. So I just downloaded them. So I have The Rogue That I Want by Samantha Holt, How to Capture a Duke by Bianca Blythe, and Loving the Marquess by Susanna Madero. So I literally have no idea what these are about, this is so bad, but I just thought I would pick them up and try them just to sort of understand what I like and what I don't like. It's always difficult when you're starting a new genre because there's so much to choose from. So if you are an expert in the genre, then I would love your recommendations. Have you tried any of those 3 authors? Because I'd love to know where to start, basically. So I thought I would just mention those ones quickly. So then I have a couple of non-fiction picks. So the first one is The Only Plane in the Sky, The Oral History of 9/11 by Garrett M. Graff. So this is basically what it says on the tin. It is an oral history of 9/11. So I think the author has pulled from interviews and documents that are already out in the world, but he's kind of like pieced it together into this new narrative. I think we hear from a lot of people that were actually involved in 9/11. So we hear from survivors, we hear from family, we hear from the first responders, witnesses. There's a lot of people I think involved in this book. And again, I've just seen a lot of really high ratings from people that I really trust their opinions. So I'm excited to try that one really soon. And then the other non-fiction that I have is The Changing Mind, A Neuroscientist's Guide to Aging Well by Daniel Levitin. So this one, again, I just kind of picked it up on a whim. I hadn't heard about this one anywhere. But this one is, again, it's pretty much what it sounds like. I think this one is an exploration of aging and the fact that quite often we look at aging as a sign of deterioration of our bodies. but actually there is science behind the fact that our decision making can actually improve with age, and there's studies that show that our happiness levels actually peak in our 80s. So it just sounds really interesting. I think it also talks quite a lot about memory and memory loss, and certain things that we can be doing in our life now, in our lifestyles and things in our personality, that can actually impact our memory further down the line. So yeah, it just sounds really good. I think this is probably going to be a little bit more academic and kind of sciencey, so hopefully it will still be really accessible for me. But it's just a really interesting topic, so I thought I would pick that one up. The next book that I have is a novel, and this is The Murmur of Bees by Sofia Segovia, and this one is translated from the Spanish by Simon Bruni. This is actually a Mexican novel, so it is set in Mexico during the time of the Mexican Revolution and the Spanish flu, so in like 1918 I think. And we basically follow a young boy who as a baby is abandoned under a bridge, and he is disfigured and he's covered in, it says, a blanket of bees. So he is found by a couple who take him in, and over time it appears that this boy is gifted, and he is able to, when he closes his eyes, sees visions of the future. So some of the people in the village are quite superstitious about this, and they think that he's been like touched by the devil. But over time he actually he really helps the villagers, like families and friends. He'll be able to save them from threats that he knows are coming round the corner. And so I think it really is kind of like a coming of age story of his life, with elements of magical realism, and the fact that it's set in Mexico. I literally know nothing about Mexico's history, so yeah, lots of positives with that one, and it just sounded super interesting, and I always like to read a lot more translated works than I do, so that is a good one to have. Hopefully I will get to it soon. I then picked up a middle grade, so this is called Witchnapped in Westrom, which is book 1 from the Paranormal Investigations Bureau series by Dion Lister. So this one is basically like a cozy mystery series, like a paranormal cozy mystery series for like the middle grade audience. I think that it begins where our main character is a photographer, and a woman turns up on her doorstep one day saying that she's a witch and that our main character's brother has gone missing, and the Paranormal Investigations Bureau need our main character's help to find him. I think she also finds out that she herself is a witch, and so she is whisked off, I think, to England to help solve this mystery. This is quite a long series. I think there's maybe like 10 books in the series, so this was the first one, and again this was completely free on Kindle, so I thought I would give it a shot, because you know, it's not like I don't have hundreds of unread books on my shelves. Then I have another handful of non-fiction books. So the first one is called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, and this is a memoir, and he is the creator or the founder of the brand Nike, or Nike, however you want to pronounce that. So I literally don't know anything else about this other than that. I think it really just talks about how, as a sort of young adult, he graduated business school and he just decided to start this company, and so he kind of I think he borrowed a small amount of money from his dad, and really just started this business from scratch. And obviously Nike is such a big brand now, so I just think it would be really interesting to hear the sort of beginnings of this company, and hopefully have a mix of the personal and professional growth story in this memoir. So yeah, I'm interested to try that one. I literally have no interest in sport whatsoever, or I don't even own a pair of Nike trainers, but I thought it would be interesting, so I picked that one up. The next one that I have is The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read and Your Children Will Be Glad That You Did by Philippa Perry. So I saw this book on Lauren Wade's channel. She hauled this in a recent book haul, and it just sounded quite interesting, and then when I saw it for 99p on Kindle's daily deals, I thought that I would pick it up. So this one I think really just talks about the relationship that you have with your children, and how you can grow good connections with your children as you bring them up. I think it talks a lot about your own upbringing and how your own upbringing can impact the way that you bring up your children, and how you parent. And again, it just sounds really quite interesting. I really like learning about these sort of psychological things. And me and my husband Danny are probably going to be having kids in the next few years, so it just sounded like an interesting read to pick up now. The next one that I have is called Motherwell, A Girlhood by Deborah Orr. So I'll be honest, I literally just picked this one up because it is set in Scotland. Motherwell is a town in Scotland, and I'd never heard of the author, but this is her memoir, and I think it starts when she is about 18 and she's going off to university, and her family, I think, aren't the most wealthy. Like, I think they're quite working class, and no one else in her family has been to uni, so her mother is quite dismissive of this decision, and she doesn't think that going to university is really for them or for the family. Deborah is quite happy to move out of her hometown and to kind of get away, but the relationship that she has with her mother kind of keeps pulling her back, and she continuously comes back, obviously, to visit home. And I think it just really explores their relationship, so this mother-daughter relationship, and how these sort of core relationships that you have in your life can really impact the decisions and the things that you do, and how they can hold you back or even subconsciously change decisions that you might have made had those relationships not been there. So I just think it would be really interesting, and I'm excited to hear from a Scottish voice. The last non-fiction book that I picked up is called How to Treat People, A Nurse at Work by Molly Case. So this one, again, it's pretty much what it says on the tin. This is Molly Case's account of what it's like to be a trainee nurse. So she works in a hospital, and I think she is talking about the different accounts that she has with her patients, and the experiences that she goes through. I think that at one point her dad is admitted into the cardiac unit of the hospital that she works in. So the book kind of takes a bit of a turn, and she talks about her personal and professional life and how those two things kind of collide at that point. So I'm hoping that this one will be kind of a good mix of memoir with the sort of medical insight, kind of similar to like When Breath Becomes Air, that sort of thing. So it's like memoir but with the medical side of it too. So I think it'll be really interesting, hopefully. And there's quite a few reviews that say that she writes with very rich, like, lyrical prose, which is definitely something that I look for. So yeah, I'm excited to try that one out. And then the last book that I have is a fiction book, and that is The Colour of Magic by Terry Pratchett. So this is the first book in the Discworld series. I have actually read this book before, years and years ago, and I've always been interested in reading the Discworld series, but I think, like, I'm such a completist, so I know if I start reading the series that I'll want to just read all of them, and there's like over 40 books in this series, and so it's quite daunting and it's very difficult to know where to start. So I googled like a reading order, and there's quite a lot that you can get on just on Google you can find, and obviously the Discworld series is made up of lots of smaller sort of character arcs, so you can choose sort of which series you want to start with. But I think The Colour of Magic is definitely considered like book one. So yeah, I thought I would pick that up on Kindle, and then if I do decide to carry on with the series, it's not like I'm going to be buying like a million books for my bookshelf. So yeah, that is the last book. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have read any of these books that I've picked up, then please let me know what you thought of them. I would really love to get some recommendations and to know where to start with these. Definitely, if you are a fan of the historical romance genre, then give me a shout and let me know if the books that I have here are good places to start, and which authors that you would recommend. Again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!